Good evening to everybody for this very, very special Porch Talk on the legacies and the legendary people of Freedmanstown. So I'm so excited to be here. I'm honored to be with these three incredible people. I've already understand that we have D9 in the house. So we'll even start there with our deltas and our AKAs and all of the things that make up the history of who we are as a people. So I'm really excited to first talk about Ms. Jacqueline Bostic, a retired postmaster, U.S. postmaster, a chairperson, and one of the leaders of Freedmanstown and the redevelopment of it. We also have Madame Pearlie Elloie. She told me that she went to France, and it was the best introduction she ever had. A civil rights trailblazer, and the first Black student at Tulane University. And even moreover, a longtime advocate for early childhood education. So we appreciate you forging the way in that way. And then Mr. Johnny T-Bone Douglas Gentry. Junior. The founder of the photography program at Jack Yates High School and a community historian. So when Freedmanstown asked me to do this, I did imagine sitting at the feet. So I'm so excited to sit here and talk to you and talk about, let's dive into the Gregory School first, right? Because we're literally sitting on the grounds where you went to school. Tell us about your time at the Gregory School, what was going on during the time, what was the atmosphere as a student? And we'll start with you, Ms. Dubois.
Well, I guess what comes to mind first, every spring we had a wrap the maypole. I don't know why I thought about that. That's, I've been in New Orleans too long. All I think about is fun. But at any rate, so all the girls dressed up, you had on, and you had theme dress and whatever it happens to be. And in those days, mama sewed or grandmother sewed or somebody sewed. And we would literally wrap the maypole.
Hold that mic up a little bit closer to you so we could all hear your story.
Could you not hear me?
No, ma'am.
Oh, they in the back?
Yes, ma'am.
They too far in the back. I'm so sorry. I thought I was speaking. I was talking about the maypole, and T-Bone said it was the Mayfair. Yeah. You're right. I don't care, whenever you want to talk about the Fourth Ward, you have to have him. I've never seen anybody with a memory like that. He remembers streets, who lived on that street, what crossed that street. I just checked with him on some grocery stores that we used to walk to when we were children. And he remembered the cross streets. I just remember the major streets, But it is so wonderful seeing him again after all of these years. But Gregory was a good place to be. John T-Bone and I lived in the 1500 block of Victor, so we walked to school every day. We walked to school and we walked back home. And the things that happen here happened sort of like early. I was telling someone the other day, they were asking about the National Negro Anthem. Mm-hmm. And I can recall third grade going into fourth grade every single morning after we did the Pledge of Allegiance and we prayed, we sang James Weldon Johnson's National Black Anthem. And I said, so when I went to New Orleans, I'm, more than 10 years older, and people say, you know that? You don't need the words? I said, I've been singing it since the fourth grade, So whoever my fourth grade teacher was, and I wish I could remember her name. I don't have the memory like John. I think her name was Miss, and nobody in the audience old as me either. Y'all all so young. I think her name was Miss Terrell. I'm not really sure. But there were 3 teachers at Gregory that I shall never forget. First person in this whole area was my preschool teacher, Miss Birdell, and she taught us at Good Hope Baptist Church in the basement, daycare center. My first grade teacher, Miss Foster, my 4th grade teacher, Miss Terrell, and there was a young lady named Miss Gladys, I think her name was Johnson. She was my teacher in, they had, you remember those shelter buildings? They were outside of the, yeah, 10 buildings would stay here forever, you know. But those 3 people just made such a big impression on me, and I should never forget the kind of interest they took in their students and the extra things that they did. They would have functions on Saturdays, and we would just come up here like it was Wednesday or Thursday. Now, I don't know if they had extra pay or not, but I know they were here, you know.
Do you feel like those people that inspired you played into your interest and advocacy into early childhood education?
I think so much, especially Miss Foster. It was such a fun year because we did all kind of artsy things and started learning some, you know, real hard language, as they call it. And then there was the library that we started going to. What was that street, John?
Frederick, on the corner of Frederick and
See there? I need to just take him around with me.
Frederick and Robert.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, Frederick and Robert.
Oh, the librarian was so wonderful. And so when I was at Booker Washington, I know we're going to talk about that. I worked, because I didn't get any pay for it, but it was just so much fun being at the library. I was always there. So I learned about the Dewey Decimal System. What did they ever do with the Dewey Decimal System, you all? No, seriously, did they just get rid of it?
Raise your hand if you were taught the Dewey Decimal System. Look at the numbers, they're going down.
They remember?
Yeah.
Some.
Y'all remember the Dewey Decimal?
Give it up, y'all.
Okay, now, this is what you do. You find out what happened, why they took it away, and let somebody know, and they're gonna let me know. Because when I talk about the Dewey Decimal System, they say, well, what is that? I said, well, that's how you found books. You go in the stacks and you know they do it. But these people were the ones who made me realize the value of reading, of books, and what you could do if you just had a lot of mouth, I guess. And so maybe they were, you know. But it was a great place to be, you know.
Mr. T-Bone, now, we know that you have perfect recall. So take us.
Oh, I knew that.
Take us to when you were at Gregory School, what year was it? And what was going on in the atmosphere in the neighborhood? How did the neighborhood feel to you? Because, you know, we walk around now. We still have a beautiful view of downtown that I'm sure looks a little different. But what did it look like then?
Well, I went to Gregory in the first grade, and we went to school from 1 through 6, grades 1 through 6. So when I was 6 years old, when I was 6 years old, I went to Gregory Elementary School. In fact, I just lived 2 blocks from Gregory, so I would walk to Gregory, as she was talking about walking to school. And I remember my first grade teacher, Miss Fisher, my second grade teacher, Miss Chandler, my third grade teacher, Miss Griffin, my fourth grade teacher, Miss T.P. Johnson. We used to ask her what the TP meant, she would never tell us. My fifth grade teacher, Miss Elliott, and then my sixth grade teacher was Miss Harrison. Miss Harrison's husband was the pastor of Antioch at that time. So now I would go to her house and help Miss Harrison at our house, kind of, do a little cleaning up around the yards and that kind of thing. She lived across the streets at that time. And so in my block, at Gregory Elementary, everybody went to Gregory Elementary School. In my block, there were 29 boys in my block.
That's right.
And I knew all the boys in the block, and we had fights, and we used to do this. Now they're using guns, but we would fight, and we'd still get along. A parent would come to the house and say, "Oh, he did this or he did that," and then the parent would. Everybody would whip you in the neighborhood if you got a whipping, if you needed a whipping. So, anything else about Gregory you want to know?
Yes, I want to know, what were your grades like? Because we're talking and you have this amazing memory.
Okay.
Right?
My memory is not as she says it is, but my grades were, I made some C's.
And what were the subjects at the time in class?
I'm gonna tell you what my daddy did. My daddy worked at a place called American Chicken Company at that time, where they dentine gum and that kind of stuff. My daddy took off from work and came to Gregory Elementary School and told the teacher to retain me. During that time, we had low and high, low third first, low first, high first. So to get promoted from the low third to the high third, you're supposed to know your multiplication tables. You're supposed to read well. Well, I knew my multiplication tables, they said to the sevens, but I knew them to the nines. So my daddy said I should know them all. So he told Ms. Johnson to retain me. So she said, but Mr. Gentry said, Johnny knows his multiplication tables to the nines and the requirements to the sevens. He said, madam, do I have to go to the office and talk to Ms. Boutte? Ms. Boutte was the principal. And Boutte wasn't nothing nice. She'd come in the restroom and whoop the boys, and make you get out of the restroom. So some of the boys kind of feared Ms. Boutte because she wasn't nothing nice when it comes to whooping the boys. So that was some of the things we experienced at Gregory. We used to wrestle we had what we call a downing ground where the boys would wrestle. And and then we have to come in and make sure we were straightened up, clean, and that kind of stuff. But I had some enjoyable times at Gregory.
Ms. Bostic, so when we're thinking about Gregory, it was established in 1870. And then, in 1870. So when you were in school there, what was your experience like? Because I'm assuming that y'all were classmates at some point, because it sounds like there's some shared memories, right? Were y'all classmates?
We were classmates, but we were there at the same
Same
time.
time.
Like
Yeah.
he was old. He was the oldest of us three. I was next, and then she was in the class after me. So he was.
I finished the class in 1947
Okay.
from Gregory Elementary School. I went to Booker Washington in the 7th grade.
In the 7th grade, because that was high school.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was high school,
So-
Booker Washington.
Yeah.
During your time at Gregory, were you doing extracurriculars? Because now we have like dance team and you can play sports and all of those things. But what were you doing at Gregory in elementary school 1 through 6? What was your experience like?
Oh, it was a wonderful experience. As has already been said, the teachers were wonderful.
Yeah,
The teachers were great. They were really interested in the students. It wasn't just a matter of them coming to school
Right.
and you were there. They believed in their students and their abilities. And so therefore, if you were smart, you got extra work. And if you were maybe cutting up, maybe you got whatever needed to be done to help you to understand that you had to be quiet in class. You just couldn't, be unruly and do things that would disrupt the class.
some would come to your house.
And
Some of the teachers would come to your house.
they
if you
would come, yes,
yeah.
I mean,
They walked to your house.
And you certainly didn't want that.
you didn't
want
want
that.
any teacher coming to tell your parents you were not doing what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
But as they said, that besides the building that was there were also some a few detached buildings because we had so many students. And Miss Boutte was the principal at the time we were all there. And she was a very strict principal. But it was a great place to go to school. It really was.
It was.
It was an exceptional place.
Okay, so now we're moving into high school, which is 7th grade when you were in high school. The high school I went to, I was the last class where junior high was 9th grade. So we were in a junior high, but they were counting our marks as, you see how I dated it and said marks instead, but counting our marks for high school. So there's always these transitions in education. So before we talk about Booker T. Washington High School, which was originally established as the colored high school in 1893, and it holds a very distinguished place in Houston because it was the first secondary school for African American students here, and then it transitioned, and it was built with $30,000. $30,000. We can't even get a parking lot for $30,000 anymore. And in 1928, the school was renamed Booker T. Washington High School. I encourage you, if you do not know who Booker T. Washington is, take your time and learn. And it remains open and evolved now. And it also got renamed during the time that Jack Yates and Wheatley came around. Mm-hmm. And so that name change was also in progression of being moved out of called colored, right? So 7th grade to 12th grade at Booker T. Washington. Mr. T-Bone, I'd love to hear what was going on during that time when you were in high school, because when you were in elementary school, you were walking up the street. So the transition's a little bit different, the transportation, the times are changing. What were you wearing?
We wore khakis. The boys wore khakis, okay? And tennis shoes. I see some of these young people now, they're wearing the tennis shoes that we wore. I'm trying to remember the name of them now. What was the name? Converses, yeah. Also, yeah. And so we walked from 4th Ward, 1500 block of Victor Street to 303 West Dallas, which is about a mile. We walked the back streets, and some of the fellows walked together. The girls walked to school too, but they walked together. Some of the boys did not walk together. And so 7th grade, I wanted to play basketball. 9th grade, the coach let me play a little basketball. So I made a few points, and so the coach would feed us hamburgers. So I told him, I said, I was high point. I'm not eating no hamburgers. I'm gonna eat me a steak. So one of the guys said, went to the Coach Harvey and said, Coach said, I was high point man last week, and Johnny said he was going, we ate hamburgers. Johnny said he was going to do a steak. He said, you going to do what? He said, tell him to come here. So he said, you going to eat a steak? I said, yeah, Coach, I'm going to eat a steak. So he said, what kind of steak? I said, I'm going to eat a T-bone steak. So he said, what? T-bone steak, huh? He said, be gone, T-bone. So the boys, down the hall every day would call me be gone, T-bone, be gone, T-bone. So that's how I got the nickname of T-bone. And even when I went to, be gone, T-bone. So even when I went to college, TSU, the professors called me T-bone, and we were in class. So I've been T-bone all these many years. Yeah.
How many of y'all have been wondering that the entirety of you knowing Mr. T-Bone? You're welcome. I love that. Okay, so you had an established relationship with your coach.
Yes. The coach said to me, you're not going to be able to play because there were guys every grade who were much better basketball player than I was. So he said, I want you to be the spokesman at the football games. So he told me to go to Mr. Law, Jimmy Law, who's at Jack Yates, and he'll learn you how to talk on the microphone. So I announced all of Booker Washington's football games. That's how I learned how to be a spokesman for Booker T. Washington. So I represented Booker T. Washington all of the football games, because we didn't have basketball games. All the basketball games were played in our gym or either in somebody else, in Wheatley's gym or Yates's gym. There were only 3 schools in Wheatley, Yates, and Washington. And then we would go to Beaumont and play Charleston Pollard. We'd go to Orange or some of the little country towns and play on weekends. But I represented Booker T. Washington announcing football games and basketball games.
During that time, what was travel like? You know, because we're talking about racial divides and safety and travel. What did that look like when you were traveling and even playing or announcing games?
We traveled with a coach. In the coach's cars, there were two cars, Coach Harvey's car and Coach Ben Stevenson. He was the football coach. Or either Coach Criner, he was our track coach. So we traveled in cars with them. There were no heaters in the cars. We were cold. You know. And so we endured.
You endured.
Yeah,
You endured.
yeah.
Ms. Bostic, what was your time like at Booker T?
Booker T was truly a wonderful experience. And as he said, we walked to school. I grew up just 2 blocks from where we're sitting right now, where he lived 2 blocks that way.
Right.
I lived 2 blocks this way on Andrews, where the brick streets are. And so we walked from Andrews on over to Dallas, to where Booker T was most of the time. We walked in the evening. We walked back, and that area now where Booker T was is all a part of downtown Houston now.
Yeah.
But it was not when we were children. It was the public library
Right, yeah.
was there. Booker T was there. There was an office building that was built, and Black Professionals was in
Pilgrim Temple.
the Pilgrim Temple.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Right.
It was called the Pilgrim Temple.
Right.
There were homes, beautiful homes there. There was Antioch Church there. All of this was a part of Freedmen's Town at that time. And so the school, it was a 2-story building.
Right.
And the front of the building had these tall steps, about 15 to 20 steps, very tall steps.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful building. And the principal during the time we was there was Dr. I.B. Bryant. And he was a wonderful man and known throughout the country as a great education person. And so you had to be on top of your lesson. There was no playing around.
Nope.
Everybody had to be in class at the right time. There was no cutting up in the hallways. You had to go to class. You had to have your lesson. And I would say some of our really, really great students at that time graduated from Booker T. Washington.
Right. Exactly.
And all of the teachers were excellent. It was just a wonderful experience, whereas he worked with, in the worked with sports. A part of my extracurricular activities was actually with the music department. And I was a part of the Glee Club.
Glee
is what
Club.
we call
The Glee
it. I'm
Club.
trying to.
Yeah, Glee Club.
My memory
still call them
fails
Glee
me.
Clubs.
Okay, the Glee Club, and also we had orchestra, and I was the soloist for the orchestra.
And we had Mrs. the lady who taught
Miss Hunter was our
music
over the music
Yeah,
department.
Miss what's the lady who taught? I'm trying to remember her
Who
name.
taught us what?
She taught theater.
Oh, theater. Yeah, we did have
We had theater.
department.
Yeah,
too.
we had theater.
Yes, we did. We did.
So we had sports and music and theater.
Yes.
What
the teachers'
extracurricular
name?
activities were you a
Remember
part of?
Well, let's see. I played volleyball.
Oh yeah, I forgot about it.
Yeah.
The thing, and I guess I want to say about Booker Washington, I guess we can't say enough about the quality of
Of the
teachers.
education.
Right.
They were just absolutely wonderful. I had a teacher named Miss Cleveland, and Miss Cleveland taught me Latin.
Latin. She taught Latin.
I was a 4-year Latin scholar. And so many years later, when I went to Europe for the first time, I walked the Appian Way, and it was things that I had learned from Mrs. Cleveland. And when I remember when I went to Dillard, and someone said to me, "Did you take a foreign language?" I said, "Yeah, I took 4 years of Latin." Well, So, and that was an odd thing. They would say, "Oh, she had 4 years of Latin. Where did you go to school?" And they name all kind of private schools. I said, "No, I went to a public school all my life, But we had wonderful, wonderful teachers. And I know when you look back on things, you tend sometimes to overlook some of the negative and think, but I think we were right on that, because both of them, both Jacqueline and T-Bone, have talked about the quality of teachers that we had. But I'll tell you one good teacher that I shall never forget. And my niece's husband he's a doctor. And I always thought I would be a pediatrician, but you had to be a doctor to be a pediatrician. So I took chemistry from, you remember Mr. Kreiner?
Mr. Crowder didn't teach chemistry, Mr.
Who was that? See that?
Mr. Osborne. Mr. Osborne.
Mr. Osborne, that's
J.G. Osborne.
Kreiner was the music teacher.
No, Crowder was a math teacher.
Was math?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
Mr. Osborne. So I took that course, and have you ever taken something and it just didn't sink? Oh, yeah. I could not do anything in chemistry for love or money.
I agree. Nothing.
And I finally said, I called him, "Mr. Osborne, I can't stand this class." I said, I don't, the only thing I ever learned was H2O. I kid you not. And so that changed my desire to someday be a doctor. I was going to be a PP doctor, And I think you know what that means. So. But having to go to only 2 schools, I think was very unique, because you stayed, as Jacqueline said, you stayed with just the same people almost your whole lifetime, And someone asked me, "Where do you go to junior high school?" I said, "We didn't have junior high school." "Well, how about middle school?" "We didn't have middle school. We had elementary school, and then we had high school." Dr. Bryan was a wonderful scholar. He was so right. The disciplinarian was the assistant principal, Mr. Huckabee.
Mr. Norris. Mr. Norris.
Before Mr.
Oh, I
Love
didn't,
Mr. Huxley.
I didn't have
Mr. Huxley was
any
the biology
connection with
Huxley
him.
was the biology teacher.
Right.
He used to make the girls, we had to dissect frogs in the biology class. And the girls didn't want to put their hands in the frog. He'd make them put their hands in Then Mr. Huckabee was an undertaker also. He had a funeral home on the corner of Dowling and Pierce at that time. So he was an undertaker. He'd make the girls put their hands and dissect the frogs. Yeah, they didn't want to do that. Mr. Huckabee was a musician. Also, he taught band for Conrad Johnson. Taught band at Booker Washington. And somebody could have us 100 to nothing, and Mr. Huckabee would say, "Play, we're gonna win, we're gonna win, we're gonna win." And we'd have to sing, "Gonna win." And we had an English teacher, Miss Miller, Virginia B. Miller.
Yes, indeed.
She was a little short lady, about 4 feet 2. I think we were saying she wore wigs during that time. But she didn't play at recess. So I got the girls in my class. You'd have to come in Miss Miller's class and line the books up and stuff. So I got the girls in my class to strike. Don't line Miss Miller. Don't line Miss Miller's books up. Miss Miller can't call each one of them up there and slap them on their head. Line them books up. She made them line the books up. But we had some great times, teachers at Booker T. Washington. You was talking about Mr. Osborne, taught chemistry. We all boys got C's because we didn't want to. So we could finish. I got to see in chemistry. Didn't know anything about no chemistry. Didn't care nothing about chemistry. I was interested in girls. And there's some very attractive young ladies during that time.
So as we talk about our 20s, if we're talking about girls, let's move into the adult years. So you were talking about you graduated and you went on to Dillard and you never actually returned to Houston.
Not to
you
live.
you I mean you come back and forth.
Yeah.
And you're in New Orleans right now, New Orleans. Right? New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yes.
Not New Orleans.
But
New
in
Orleans.
your 20s, what was going on?
In the
Because
20s?
when we were talking about when you were in your 20s, like were you hanging out at the El Dorado Ballroom here in Houston? The Black Panther Party was here in Houston during those times. So what were you doing in your 20s here in Houston? What was the atmosphere like?
I went to TSU. I couldn't have gone to any other school but TSU. During that time, you know, so when I wanted to get away from home, I wasn't going. So my buddy and I got an apartment in 3rd Ward. And
What street?
on Blodgett. In that block, we call it Shame on Sin Street. Shame on Sin Street, because we did all the partying in that 100 block of Blodgett. I mean, we did serious partying. So, and my undergrad transcript looked like a road map, because all I did was party, but pretty much. So, I participated in sit-downs and sit-ins in the 20s. We integrated, well, the post office is now called Wine Garden. We integrated Wine Gardens. I have integrate Folders downtown. Help integrate some of the other places. Now, I didn't go to jail. You know, putting us in jail. My daddy told me if I went to jail, he wasn't going to get me out. So I had assisted TSU and I assisted Prairie View, and my brother was getting ready to go to school pharmacies. So when the police would come, I would ease out and never went to jail. Y'all know about Bill Lawson? Well, I was along that group of folks back then, Reverend Bill Lawson, when we in integration, when we integrated the lunch counters. I also went to church so much as a kid, I swore I won't ever go to church no more. My mother was a Baptist, and my dad had belonged to the Church of the Living God, which was on the corner of Valentine and Solid at that time. So I'd go to church with some of my friends who were Unitarians, they were Methodists, Catholic, and so I couldn't understand why my buddy friends had to go in that little booth and tell Mr. Charlie, that white man, their business. Because there were no black priests during that time. There were only white priests.
That's right.
So I couldn't understand that. So I wound up, I'm a Baptist by choice.
One of the things I like to say about, and maybe it's not a negative, but there are things that just stay with you forever. And I can remember when we got textbooks
Oh, yeah.
at Booker Washington, they were never new. They had Reagan, and what are the other white schools? I remember the name Reagan, you know. It would always have somebody else's name, and they were worn and scratched up, and it was like, it was the last step before they went to the dumpster, you know. And so when you think about that, and then you think about the responsibility of passing on, of doing better for those who come after you, building on what came before you. And I think that probably encouraged a lot of activism from our generation, because we had to live with that kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, what she's saying about the books is true. We got books from the white schools, okay? Even our uniforms. We got Milby's uniforms, because their colors was blue and gold just like ours were. Wheatley got Jeff Davis's uniforms because they were the same color. Jack Yates was the only school that didn't get, because there were no schools with Jack Yates's colors, with crimson and gold during that time. So that's how we got the uniforms and the books. But the books were used. In fact, everything we got pretty much was used during that time.
Miss Pearlie, when you're talking about activism and you went to Tulane. You were one of the first Black students there. Talk about the fight to integrate and how that was, and what was your experience? And were there any close calls with police and friction?
Not really, not really. One of the things that, as you talk about and you see some negatives, there were so many positive things too. When I finished from Dillard, I wanted to pursue a degree in social work. By that time, I was married and I had a baby. And Tulane was not accepting Black students. The closest one was LSU in Baton Rouge. Those of you Louisianians, look at my grandson.
Whose son is that?
That's Charles
Whose son is
the
that?
third.
Whose son is that?
This is brother's son.
Oh, okay.
You know, this is the kind of stuff. If you had a brother, usually
That's Bubba's son?
that's Bubba's son.
Really?
You would just say, my brothers. So my brother, his name was Leon. We never called him Leon.
Bubba, he was Bubba.
He was Bubba to the outsiders. In the house, mother would say, go tell brother.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. But at any rate, getting back to Tulane. So I had a professor, Dr. John Fury, and this woman was very, very much into equality and, you know, spreading the good thing. And they decided it was time for Tulane to admit Black students. And so Dr. Fury came and asked me and Barbara Guillory. And I must say this because one of the commitments I made to the memory of Barbara, it was Barbara Guillory and I who sued Tulane University. There's an African proverb that says, as long as you call my name, I shall not die. And so I speak the name of Barbara Guillory because I did not walk this alone. Barbara and I walked this together. And so we were both good students. I was the valedictorian from Dillard, from Booker Washington, and I finished from Dillard magna cum laude. So we made application, and they knew they were going to turn us down. And of course they did. But they did say, you meet all of the qualifications, but we do not admit Black students. All that did, and the woman who was the active part of this was the family of the owners of Coca-Cola out of Atlanta. So she put lots and lots of money. So we sued Tulane. So we started this suit in 1961. And it went from one thing to the other. It finally ended up that the judge who was getting ready to vacate that seat and go on to a higher court said that there's no reason why Tulane cannot admit students. It is a private institution, and therefore it has the right to do this. Part of the reason that Tulane then said they would admit Black students, because the Ford Foundation, there was another foundation that gave them lots and lots of money, said you either do the right thing or we will no longer give you money. So it wasn't out of the goodness of their hearts, it was out of the need of their pocket, you know. But that's okay, it was a great experience. And so I started in September of '63 and met some wonderful, wonderful people. But from September of '63 to May of '65, I never had another Black student in any class with me, you know. And to just show you how the kind of education that we had, and especially those of us who went on to HBCUs, we had to take a qualifying exam for research. And so this professor had research 1, the A, B, and C. And he just knew that Pearlie Mae Harden Elloie was going to be in C, but guess what I was in?
Hey.
Oh, you
Hey.
better know it.
Hey.
You better know it. Yes. And so he actually challenged my grades. He went to the dean and challenged my grade. The dean said, fine. He said, what do you want to do? I know what you can do. I said, just let him give me another test right here and there. And that's what I did. I took the test, looking at him. But we had gone to schools where people made us believe that we could do. And so we were not afraid to take that step. And I think that's why so many people of our generation became activists. Because when you go through fire, you learn to put your asbestos suit on, but still keep on going because you know you're going to be okay. You know.
I went to, we had a project to do at TSU. 4 of us had a project to do in an English class. So we went to the University of Houston. And this was 1954 now. Went to the University of Houston. They put us off, called the police to put us off the campus.
Yeah.
There were no black folk cutting the yards during that time at the University of Houston. They were washing no dishes, so they put us off the University of Houston campus. So when I got a chance to go to the University of Houston, I went and got me some, I call white hours. But we just had talked about those days when doing integration. There was some things going on that you people would never. And I know his dad Reuben was a year behind us. He went to University of Texas, and they were in dormitories. We would take them some money. They kind of help them out a little bit because they were in those shacks. But we went through it.
But in spite of,
In spite of, and just because.
and just because,
I like that. That's right.
whatever happened, we had the resilience.
Yeah.
We had the understanding about who we were
Yes.
Yeah.
and what we could do. And so there was not a school that I went to anywhere in this country. I went to Fisk University in Tennessee, which is an excellent
Right.
HBCU.
Right.
I went to Hofstra College in New York. Wonderful school. But there was nowhere that I went that I was not at the top of my class. Nowhere. And all of my education, I got right. My basic education, I got right here
Right.
at the Gregory School
And Booker Washington.
and Booker T. Washington.
Yeah.
And I could stand up against anybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ditto. Yeah, I went to TSU and Prairie View. And after I went to Prairie, I got a couple of master's degrees in Prairie View. Went to A&M and got some work toward a doctorate. You know, and during that time, we were washing black boys out. They had several of us wanted to wash us out. And so I decided I'm not letting these folk wash me out. So I just kind of just quit and went to work, you know, worked for Prairie View for 20 years, worked at HID for 20 years, went to Africa with Prairie View and did some things over there for several years. But top of the class.
That's right.
Yeah, we did the best that we could do, and we did it. We did it. We enjoyed it.
Top
We
of the
enjoyed
class.
school.
Well,
We enjoyed
I'm sitting up here in good company because I was Summa and magna cum laude as well. So
Yes.
Well, from TSU, I finished. Thank you, Lordy.
yes,
Mercy, Lordy.
by any
Lordy,
means
Lordy.
necessary.
But now, when I got to graduate school, didn't finish school, but I was the top of my class. Top of the class. Yeah.
So when we're talking directly about Freedmen's Town, you worked on revitalizing the neighborhood. What drove you to do that work?
Well, interesting, I always really loved Freedmen's Town. And actually, if it had not been for the fact that there was a time in the city of Houston, the home that I grew up in, we wanted to do some remodeling on the home. And that was at the city of Houston, they had decided that there was a moratorium on granting permits to anybody doing any building or renovations or remodelings on our homes in this area. I'd still be living in Freedmen's Town. But since we could not do anything with our home other than leave it as it was, then my parents decided that we would move.
What year was that?
That was in the 50s. That was in the 1950s. But
Y'all moved in 50.
Community redevelopment.
community
yeah.
redevelopment, I'm trying to, because I got off on that something else. But anyway, and because of I always believed and felt like, and was, and as you say, an activist, that what the people who lived here were not getting what they were paying their tax dollars for. We were paying taxes, and yet we could not get streets fixed. We could not get anything that we were paying for. And so after I came back from college, I immediately started working on in terms of the community in trying to get things turned around as it applies to how we were treated as citizens and what we deserved as tax-paying citizens. And so I worked in different groups, you name it, whatever group we had in the,
You worked with
in the community,
Yeah, you did.
I would be a part of and try to go through the city and the process and whatever it was to try to get things turned around so that we could develop homes and do your renovations and do the things that need to be done and should have been done and we should have been allowed to do. And so finally in the 1990s, I guess it was, in the early 90s, there was finally an administration in place that decided that if we could,
from the city.
if we could actually come up with plans and what we were going to do, that they would work with us to try to allow us to do some redevelopment. Because what had happened through the years, as people could not do anything with their property or their homes, they moved to other places.
Right.
And so they finally start tearing down a lot of the homes and things. And so starting back in the 90s, there were administrations that were willing to work with us. And so we had to come up with different plans and develop a process of how we were going to get things done. And we were able to start getting a turnaround and being able to get redevelopment started, I'd say. The Gregory School in this place, I tell people, the first thing that happens to a community when they really want you to dissolve and not to be anymore is they take away your schools. That's the first thing they do. So the first thing that they did when they took away our ability to fix up the properties was to take away the school. So first they took away Booker T.
Washington. Yeah.
Washington.
Right.
And they moved it to the Heights area. They closed it down. And then the freeway came through.
Right.
And all of the things,
Yeah.
45 came through. And so that cut the community in half.
Change the
And
streets.
changed the streets name and everything.
Yeah.
And so then the next thing after they moved Booker T, then they shut down Gregory.
Right.
And they didn't build anything on it. They did not tear down the school, but no one could send their children to school in the area.
Right.
And then finally they built Gregory Lincoln
Yeah.
so that there was a school
Yeah.
for the elementary school children. But this building sat here for years.
Yeah.
The school district did not sell it, they did not tear it
They
down,
didn't release it?
they wouldn't release it.
Yeah.
But finally, after we were able to start getting the redevelopment of the area, then they were willing to work with us, and we were allowed to build a library, turn the school into a library, because the structure of the school is still the same as it was when we went to
kids,
school, when
yeah.
we were kids.
Yeah.
But the city came through and allowed it to become a part of the library system. And the school district, I think, sold it to the city for like a penny or a little much or nothing.
Right.
And then that's how we got the library, and we were able to get it back operational in a place where people could go and learn.
Yeah.
So,
I was looking down at my paper because as she's talking, I was like, I just read about this. And so, like, what is it an honor to, like, you can read about stuff, but to hear it from people that experienced it, it's a whole nother thing. And so, according to ChatGPT, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's where we are now. You know, in the times we're in right now, there's a lot going on. And I remember somebody approached me and they were like, LaGina, aren't you worried? Aren't you sad? Aren't you angry? And I said, no, because we have the playbook from our elders, and that's all I need to understand to move forward. So as we wrap up, I want to know from each of you, with everything going on right now, and we could talk about planes, trains, automobiles, money, the White House that we built, all the things. What do we need to know to forge forward?
I think we need these young people out there to recognize whose shoulders they're standing on. Some don't recognize, they don't know anything about the history. They don't know what we did to get this far. For an example, my great-grandmother was responsible for buying the bricks to lay Andrew Street, okay? Then that property that we had, they taxed me out of there. They raised, I don't know about Jackie's them taxes, but they taxed us so that I could not keep the property. I had to leave the property. I had to sell it, the property. That property on West Gray, I had to leave it because they taxed us out. We couldn't hang, we couldn't stay because the taxes were so high. And so that's what happened to a few people who own property in Freedmanstown, a fourth ward as we know it. Couldn't stay because of the taxes got us. And then the house burned, so I'm paying $8,000, for an example, on a vacant lot. I can't pay that on a vacant lot.
Yeah.
So those things that happened to us here in Fourth Ward, Freedmanstown, just a few people own houses here now. One or two people maybe still own houses. Did you know about, Jackie? Yeah.
Well, I guess one of the things I like when I speak about young people is that it's not a one-way street. There are lots and lots of things that we can learn from young people, and lots of things that they can learn from us. I want to compliment the group on this kind of occasion. The oral history is such a wonderful, powerful weapon that we need to build on, making sure that we never forget to talk to each other, to record it, to put it down in writing, so that 25 years, 30 years from now, when we want to build that applesauce cake, we have a recipe. You know how your mamas never wrote a recipe down? Oh, a little bit of this, what they say, John? A little bit of this, a pinch of that.
Little dab of this.
And John said it's the wrong pinch.
Yeah, a pinch of this, a pinch of that.
But oral history is a powerful tool, and I want to encourage the Conservancy to continue that, to continue to bring people together to talk about things, to include young people, because they need to be a part of not just where we've been, but where are we going? How are we going to use this as a jumping off point to make sure that what has happened, that having to go and use books from somebody else, from having to go through sit-ins and sneak out on your little brother so you wouldn't go to jail. What does that mean to us? How can we build on that? How can we become more powerful? I just think this is wonderful. I was thrilled to be here, and I'm more thrilled that I did come to sit here and be 2 blocks from where I was raised, from about 2 or 3 years old to when I left, when I was a junior in sophomore or junior in high school. It's tremendous. It's good for me. And thank you, Jackie, for being a part of helping to bring this back, because I think everyone who participated in this process needs to be congratulated.
Yeah.
Because in many ways, this was new and different for us as a people to give back like that. So my thing is, we learn from one another, we maintain our strengths. Somebody used the word resiliency. We are strong people. And even this, we will overcome. We will live through this. We'll be a little scarred, we'll be a little hurt, we probably lose some money, but we will walk through this, because we've walked through many, many fires in the past. So that's what I like to say.
I'm quite sure that there are some young people in here doing some things. And I know one who is doing some things, and Ruben's son, raise your hand up, man. So he's doing, I know he's doing some things, and I know his dad taught him some things, and so he's gonna do very, very well. I've seen him on TV a couple of times, told his dad about it, things I've seen. So he's doing some things in his, and so I'm proud of you, man. And your dad was a personal friend of mine, still a personal friend of mine, because we have lunch together several times, a couple of times a month sometimes. But keep on keeping on and encourage the young people your age in your age group to do some things. And plus, he's a Booker Washington graduate also.
I think it's really important, as everybody says, we have to learn to respect each other. We have to learn to listen to each other. And we really have to learn how to work with each other. And when I say that, I'm talking about all people, not just those people who look like me.
Yeah.
Because we have to remember, in this country, people who look like me are only 12% of the population. Think about that. So 12% of a total population of 300 and some million people, that's a small amount. So that means that if you want to be able to live your best life, and if you want to live it to the fullest, and if you want to have the things that you would like to have for your children and your grandchildren, then that means you've got to work with everybody. And everybody else also has to understand that they have to work with you also. We don't live in this life alone. And so whatever I have been afforded the opportunity to do in my life, it's all because of working really with other people and God's goodness.
Amen. Amen.
Because none of us made this world. None of us made man. So there's somebody bigger than you and I. And we all need to understand that. And so we need to make sure that we understand that. But we do have to learn how to care for one another, how to love one another, how to be kind to each other, how to respect each other, and how to work together. And this too shall pass.
Absolutely.
That is what you call an immersive educational experience. We appreciate you, we honor you, we respect you, and we will forge forward. We would like to thank everybody in the audience, the Freedmen's Town, and everything that's going on here. There's tons of programming and excellent staff, volunteer opportunities, and I believe advisory board seats still available. And there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of knowledge to be held, and a lot of honor to move forward in everything that's going on here in Houston and beyond. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand it back over to Madam Director.
First of all, I don't know, it's like being in church when your cup is just overflowing. I count it an honor and a privilege every time I get to talk to Ms. Bostic. And there's one lesson that she always shares is being in the spirit of working together. I remember that, and I use that as my constant reminder as I do this work every single day. It is a labor of love to do it. It's not the easiest work to do, but I do understand. Coming from the elder, working together is going to help us be able to get there. I'm so excited that I got a chance to meet with Mr. T-Bone, who's a charmer, by the way.
Whole charmer.
And then, of course, to make, an introduction with Madame Elloie, who graciously accepted my call to actually come here all the way from New Orleans. So I just want you guys to just really just take this moment in and really understand what you just learned here. This isn't in the history books. Let's be clear. This is not in the history books, but these are real stories. And so just give another round of applause to say thank you. Thank you. So as all of us are growing a little aged and a little seasoned, don't say you tired, because look at these examples. They still up here working. So I have no excuses when I tell my husband my knee hurt, I can't go do something. But at this time, I also want to take a moment to recognize Miss Opal Lee, who is in the audience with us tonight. Miss Opal Lee she's the grandmother of Juneteenth. So you guys are sitting in Freedmen's Town, the oldest black settlement in Houston, and we are affectionately called the child of Juneteenth. And now we have Miss Opal Lee sitting in the audience, who is the grandmother of Juneteenth, who had an act of activism in getting the notoriety of Juneteenth needing to be celebrated, who walked 2.5 miles to represent the 2.5 years that were between the time that the original announcement was made for freedom to the time that the folks here in Galveston got that announcement. But I want to extend an opportunity for Ms. Opal to actually say some words if she wants to. She received an award today, so she has been on the road today, being recognized and honored for all of her work. So.
Good evening, young people. Good evening. And you're all young people if you're not 98. So there. I just want to ask you to make yourself a committee of one to change somebody's mind. You know people who aren't on the same page you are. Change their minds. Not gonna happen in a day, you're gonna have to work at it. But if people have been taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And it's up to you to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee, and thank you to your granddaughter who has been laboring during this time of attending the Texas Historical Commission Conference. We met with them earlier today, and we are just so delighted that you all accepted our invitation. This is another moment where I get to say Eileen knows everybody, our board chair. So we're going to close it out at this time so that you guys have an opportunity to grab some food, grab some more drink. But just want to thank you all for taking your time out tonight to actually be with us here on this great night. I'm really, really full. Like, I'm so excited. Look, let me just get to these notes here because, Lord, I'll be talking all night. Just some quick notes to follow us on social media for all of our programming. You can also access our programming on our website at HoustonFreedmenstown.org. And we want you guys to make sure that you enjoy the food and the drink and things that we have left here. And I just want to say one more thing before we actually exit the building. That pride that all of these folks have for Booker T. Washington, so do my classmate and I, Jakari Sherman. So, look, I'm going to call out Jakari because Jakari, of course, his dad is friends with T-Bone, but also Jakari Sherman and I are good friends as well and classmates. And I think he will agree with me that we've experienced that same cultural pride when we graduated from Booker T. Washington in 1995. There was, in 1993, they celebrated the centennial year of Booker T. Washington. Right. Yeah. We didn't know what we were doing or why at that time, but to have this full circle moment and be able to enjoy it with a classmate is like wonderful. So I didn't want to leave here without actually saying that. But thank you guys for being here tonight. Come back and see us again and enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you.